Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of the Virtual Ninja Show. My name is Heike, and today, for those of you who know me, we're going to talk about conditional access, which is one of my favorite features. I love it because I remember a long time ago when we integrated with Defender for Endpoint, and it gives so many nice flexibilities for our customers. And I have Lisa with me. And Lisa, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show, Heike. My name is Lisa. I'm currently a senior product manager at Microsoft Security. And excited to be here to chat more about conditional access and how we're helping customers secure their environment.
Exactly. It's about securing the environment. Um, so, in general, conditional access, I think it's been around a long time, but of course, it gets new additions and new integrations. But in a nutshell, what is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in a nutshell, what conditional access is the zero trust policy engine. And for security administrators, identity admins, what they typically use conditional access for is to define business rules and logics, which will help them protect their organization's resources and defining what users need to fulfill in order to gain access. So, for example, I imagine for most of us listeners on the show, you probably have an experience where you get a ping on your phone when you try to access your company email or get to your company SharePoint page saying, hey, you need to perform a multi-factor authentication. That's a kind of controls which security admins at your company will be able to define through conditional access and say, yep, for all of my employees, when they want to look at company emails, they need to prove who they are and that they have the right identity in order to access.
Yes. And it's also considering risk, right, as a measurement. So let's say if there's an alert on endpoints, I remember that, or if a user, is there some suspicious sign-in activities. So all of this is also considered. So what are some challenges maybe that customers actually have now with conditional access? It's too many or conflicting rules or
It's
tell
a great
me.
question. I think so. Starting from what are some of the business challenges we see today? I'm sure, Heike, you have heard that AI is here and it's taking over the world and it's taking over all of our workflows. Well, that is true in most business environment as well. As employees continue to adopt new AI tools, increasingly security admins are facing challenges, right? With how do they secure their organizations with new tools and new applications added to the environment. And that's probably faster than they can catch up with. Another thing we have seen is attackers have also learned to use AI tools to help them with implementing attacks. And that's one element where having a zero trust policy engine is even more important because without the correct security posture in place, there are going to be gaps or sometimes there will be cracks where the attackers will be able to punch through. For example, with authentication, we spoke about multi-factor authentication earlier. Increasingly, we're seeing that customers or organizations are moving to adopt phishing resistance authentication so that attackers aren't able to compromise their organization boundaries.
Uh-huh.
Now, depending on how mature the customers are or how long they have been using a product like conditional access, there's different level of challenges that they are facing. For example, what we hear from a lot of our small, medium business enterprises is that conditional access is complicated. And as their teams are beginning to learn about how to use conditional access and deepening their security posture across the zero trust pillars, they realize that, hey, upskilling is a real challenge, right? Conditional access is powerful, but how do we use all of the different feature sets? Um, you mentioned earlier about risk conditions. Not every customers have started doing the detailed implementation of policy based on user risk yet. So that would be something new someone has to learn. Now, if you compare that to a very mature large enterprise that maybe has a dedicated security admin team who has been working with conditional access for, say, last 5 years, chances are they probably have a lot of different rule sets or different conditional access policies. And yes, oftentimes we do hear about questions like, how do I deconflict? How do I make sure that I'm able to identify and assess gaps in existing policies so that as an organization, I can ensure there are no gaps in my secure boundary. So that's one element of helping admins deduplicate or identify gaps. That's something where we see a lot of the larger companies have challenge with.
Mm. So, Lisa, you mentioned AI before. So, is conditional access in general helping now with AI based attacks? Or is there something so specific that it will help with AI entities?
Yeah, so this is the year of about all about AI agents, and I think everyone has been hearing the buzz. A lot of our customers are experimenting with building their own agents as well. So we actually just announced the public preview of Microsoft Entra Agent ID, and that is a new element where conditional access can be used to help secure your agents the way you have done for identities in the past. For example, a lot of our customers use conditional access to protect service principals or application identities. And agent ID is now an additional way where folks can use it to secure any AI agents they're introducing into their environment.
Awesome. So you explained a couple of challenges that customers might have. But we are not just here to discuss the challenges, but also maybe how we can help them overcome them. So what do we have today?
Yeah, today I'm excited to chat and share with you about the new conditional access optimization agent, which we have introduced in April. And the agent is designed to help security admins and identity admins identify gaps in their environment and any duplications of their conditional access policies so that they can continue to improve and enhance their security posture.
Before we dive into a demo, so I can understand how it looks at duplicate entries, maybe, or something, but how does it look into, there is a gap, you should create some extra policy? So, can you talk a little bit, share a little bit about the behind the scene, what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So what as we went down this journey of identifying what will be most helpful for customers to automate away with something like an intelligent AI agent, is that a lot of customers share that one of the key challenges they face is in understanding when new applications or new users are added to their environment. Now, today, what a lot of admins will have to do is monitor these changes manually or do it through their API where they may have to develop custom shell scripts and custom detections so that they can say, great, my business team, for example, my finance team, have onboarded new members to their organization. For example, summer interns or new employees. Now, how does the security admin ensure that these new users are automatically protected in existing conditional access rule set? Or if the new users are not yet protected, be alerted that there is a gap and therefore create any new policies or update existing
Uh-huh.
policies to protect these new users and applications. So that's something that, again, currently is very manual. It takes a lot of time for admins to sort through things like their audit logs and sign-in logs in order to go the full journey from identifying a gap, mitigating the gap, and therefore protecting their environment at the end.
Wow. Okay. So I think I want to see it now.
Yes, let's dive in. So here we are in the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. And as you can see here, we're on the homepage where for customers, what we did during public preview is that we introduced the Security Copilot agent. So you'll likely see a banner or a tile here, which talks about the 60-day free trial that customers have access to test out and experiment with the conditional access agent. From here, you can choose to go to agents directly, and you also see we have a new menu on the left for customers to quickly navigate to Security Copilot agents. Now, within the Entra environment, the page looks a little bit lonely because we only have one agent today, but that is something that a lot of our teams are actively working on, introducing new agents. So from here, you'll see that the conditional access optimization agent is in public preview. Now, I already have it installed in my environment, but for customers setting it up for the first time, if they click View Details, they'll have a way to have a one-click installation. By clicking into it, we're brought to the Conditional Access Optimization Agent page. There's a lot of information on this first page because I have already installed it and run it a few times. So take a quick look at what this agent does.
So before you continue, quick question, Lisa. When you say install it, is this like a .exe that you download and install everywhere? Or what do you mean by install it?
Yeah. So for customers, basically what one needs to do is firstly, we need to ensure that you have Security Copilot configured and set up. And a big reason why that setup step is important is around data governance. So one thing that's top of mind for customers and a question that often come up is where will my data be stored? Especially if they're dealing with data locality laws such as GDPR in the EU region. So that's why the setup is important. Now, what we mean when we say install is it simply adds the conditional access agent to the customer's tenant environment within Entra. So you won't have to download any additional files. Think of it as onboarding an application to your environment. In this way, you're onboarding a CA agent to your Entra environment.
Okay, there's no more installation, deployment, configuration, or something needed.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So we're looking at the conditional access agent. And from here, you can click run agent to actually execute the CA agent. And from here, you'll be able to see that the agent is running. Some of the activities will be updated. Now, depending on the size of your environment, it may take anywhere up to a minute to 2 minutes. And here you see that a new run has begun and is currently in progress down here.
Uh-huh.
So while this is running, let's take a look at what the agent actually does. Earlier, we mentioned that one of the key challenges we have heard from customers is around how they can identify newly created users or applications to ensure that there's no gaps in their environment. So
Uh-huh.
what the agent has gone ahead and do is review the organization's audit log and identify any new users and applications that were added in the last 24 hours. From there, it will evaluate or analyze your existing conditional access policies to see, hey, are these new users and applications protected by my existing policies? If not, the agent will make some suggestions, which we will go into here on the recent suggestions table. And from here, we will be able to see what the agent has learned through its analysis.
Wow. So, and when you say apps, we're talking about cloud apps, right? SaaS
Correct.
applications. Good. Thank you. Wow. So it learned a few things. So let's go through the first, let's say, 3 suggestions so we get a sense for, yeah, examples.
For sure. Yeah. So as you can see, we just completed a run and it identified some suggestions. So we'll click into this first one and see what happened here. So in this suggestion, the agent has actually found two similar policies. Earlier, we mentioned that one of the potential challenge for companies that have been using conditional access for a while is that they may have duplications or very similar policies that were created over time, maybe by different team members or during testing. So in this example, the agent has found two policies that the agent assess and say, great, I think I can actually combine them to be more efficient. So you reduce it from two to a single policy. So from here, we can see that the agent identified the policies. You can click into them directly. And it also talks about what the potential user impact would be should the admin decide to go ahead and implement this change. For example, there are two users that will be included in a policy, and this requires users to satisfy multi-factor auth or MFA and device compliance. And what we can then do is validate and say, hey, did the agent assess this correctly, right? Are these policies truly similar enough where I want to go ahead and combine them into a single policy? So we see here on the screen that we have an agent suggested policy, which combines or merges the two policies together. And you can see what the original policy configurations are. For example, the first one, CA agent test, you see that it has selected a single user targeting all cloud apps require multi-factor auth. And the second one is, again, a singular user requiring all applications and requiring device to be marked as compliant. So we find that a lot of customers typically find device compliance to be an additional control that can further protect their environment beyond saying, hey, users should prove their identity with multi-factor auth. So from this example, the agent has said, hey, since you're only targeting a small number of users, right? You can further your protection by combining them into a single policy that requires both users to perform MFA as well as have a compliant device.
Okay.
So
I would say this is not a similar policy, but it is basically enhancing the policy and the security by merging them, right? So because it's the one is looking at the device risk or like compliance of a device, the other one says all the like multi-factor authentication. Having both together is cool.
yes, so definitely in this example, I think exactly as you described, it's about enhancing the security posture by having a stricter rule set, right, requiring users to have two grant controls.
And also not having two policies for one user. Um, right. So yes,
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
So also because in this example, it's about that user, and I'm always wondering why would someone create conditional policies of conditional access policies for individual users and not target everyone, please?
Yeah, that's a great question. We had similar question for our customers as well. As you know, with zero trust best practice, we highly recommend our customers to apply or have CA policies apply to all of the users in environment. But I think that's oftentimes where, again, depending on how far along the customers are in their zero trust journey, they may need to have exceptions. A common case that we hear is, for example, the company or the customer may have break glass accounts. So special admin where they want to be able to help recover their environment should there be any changes or the admin might no longer be available. So break glass accounts are a common category of user identities which may be excluded from an all user policy.
But even not user, Lisa, but even groups, right? So let's say the engineering division and the developer division, and it's not Sam and Michael and Ryan and Rajesh. Like you don't go by names, but rather groups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
Okay.
think even in a break glass account, you can manage that through a group where you have a group called break glass and you target multiple users within that. Yeah. So, Heike, that was a great question about managing conditional access policies via groups and how the break glass account may be managed. So, let me show you an example and let's dive in. In the groups, a lot of our customers have shared with us that, yes, in fact, they will have a dedicated group for break glass account. So, I'm just going to show you an example where in this tenant that I've set up, there's a break glass group that's being used to manage a variety of different users. Now, going back to the agent, we actually have a feature called custom instructions. And this is where you are able to tailor or customize the agent with instructions so that it will meet your business needs. For example, we can actually come in here and you can type in natural language and say, great, always exclude my break glass group from agent suggestions. And then simply click save.
Wow. Okay. You can customize or like talk like it with ChatGPT and Copilot and Chatty and all of them and tell them, hey, this is awesome.
But from here, you can see that the agent was able to understand the natural language and it correctly found the group, which was called break glass. So going forward, when the agent is making any suggestions, such as, hey, add users or add new groups to a conditional access policy, if it has also identified that the group will always be excluded from these recommendations going forward. Yeah, so that's just something I wanted to share because it was something we heard customers feedback on, saying we have business rules that we want the agent to observe and respect, and
Mm.
this is one of the ways that we have thought of, right, to help address that need.
Yes. Thank you so much for explaining.
Yeah. So 100%. I think we have seen both cases, right? Where depending on the size of the environment, most companies would choose to manage their policies through group membership as opposed to directly adding or excluding users. Yeah. And I think that's where it's interesting to see what are misconfigurations versus what are exclusions by design. If it's a well designed policy, group membership is going to be more flexible than directly adding or excluding users. But another common case we do here, right, for example, with sales team, is that maybe a sales team member is traveling and they currently have a policy that leverages locations to determine who can access certain resources. Now, when sales teams are traveling, oftentimes they're at a customer site trying to have a meeting or presenting at a conference. And in those cases, they may be asking their admins team to make some quick adjustments or exclusions needed so that they can perform that job function depending again on how organizations govern their policies, right? That may be a change that was intended for a limited amount of time for specific users, which should be reverted at the end of the trip. But if it gets missed through the cracks, then that's where you might see specific users being excluded from a all user policy.
And because there's so many different companies and so many different ways of doing it, I think it's great that it actually now shows you um, all the things that are missing, like users and apps are new, or yeah, awesome. So let's have a look at the next one. So this was basically you have two policies, merge them, awesome.
Yeah. So in fact, from this step, so at the previous step when we're looking at compare policies, you can choose to then turn it on from there directly or come back to the suggestion tab and turn on the policy if the admin does in fact agree with the agent's assessment, right? Because you can very well say, well, no, I don't want to combine my policy. Thanks for highlighting it, but I don't want it. In which case you can simply exit out and effectively ignore the suggestion. And in that case, it would not be applied.
So when you say turn on,
Mhm.
I always want to click on buttons. Don't do it. But it will create a new policy and delete the old policies, or what happens?
Yeah, so for that's a good question. So for now, what the agent has done is it has created a new report only policy. And for it to be easily identified, the policy name reflects the combination of those two, right? So again, if we look at it side by side here, the very first policy was called C agent test, and the second was C agent test 3. So the new policy is called merged C agent test and C agent test 3. So the agent has already created this new policy in report only mode. So at this time, if the customer agree, they can choose to click and say turn on the policy, which effectively changes that policy from report only to enabled. So that was what happened in that action itself.
The other two are gone.
So currently, we have kept them in the environment because one of the things we have heard from customers is that deletion of a policy is governed. And some customers will have to go through a change management process before they can delete a policy. So for now, the agent will simply turn on this new combined policy, but we're leaving it in the user's control to say, hey, you have to perform the checks and balances you need before you go ahead and delete a policy.
And then if you feel like it's a nice suggestion, but as you said, the admin says, no, I want to keep those. Can I remove that suggestion to not look at it every day again and have the same suggestion that I decide not to apply?
Yes, that's a great idea. We don't currently have that ability to dismiss or remove a suggestion, but over time, as you run it, it will disappear from this dashboard. And for example, if you click into suggestion, you'll see that there are older suggestions that were from previous runs. So yeah, over time, it will almost get archived into this suggestions table instead of showing up on the front page
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
for sure.
After you enabled it, it also shows the status applied, which means all set.
That's right. Yeah. So at this point, you'll see that because it's applied, so when you click view policy, you see that this new policy which the agent has created, the state it's now being turned on
Hmm.
because you have just performed that action. So it changed from report only to on. Yep.
Awesome.
Let's take a quick look at the second suggestion. It looks like this is a slightly older suggestion, so something that maybe over the weekend the admin has not been able to review yet. So in this case, what the agent has identified is 4 new users which were added to the environment, and the recommendation is for the agent to add these users to an existing policy. Now we see here that there's specific user IDs. That is an improvement that we're looking to make so that it will reflect and show up as the actual usernames instead of user IDs. That's one of the feedback we've heard from the customers. And from here, similarly, we'll be able to go into review policy changes and see what has changed. So from here, you can see that the new users, in fact, have been added to a group. So, Heike, you mentioned earlier, do customers want to manage users directly or do they want to manage through group membership? And we did hear that group membership is the common way that customers want to manage any users. So, what the CA optimization agent has done in this case is that it has created a group for the policy. And if we click on the group, you see that great, here are the 4 new users that were identified that were added to the environment at some point. So the agent has gone ahead, created a group, and it has added these users. Now, at this time, as a security admin, right, you may be looking at these members and saying, well, who are these people? Were they added accurately, right? Are they new employees? Are they summer interns? What is the requirement here? So by having these links, again, you can click on them directly and go to the user page and learn more about the user.
Hmm.
So in this case, we also have a JSON view, which would display and show effectively what the policy configuration changes. So previously, the original policy targeted 4 users, but did not include any group, right? Which is why you see that's a red line. And with this new suggestion, what the agent is effectively saying is that, hey, we have added the 4 new users to this new group. So if you're going to apply the change, you see that we've added a brand new group to your policy.
So I think if you ask me, this is amazing, and this is such a time saver for, like, also cleaning up. And, like, if you look at some environments, all the policies, and I don't think everybody understands in the end what's going on,
Yeah.
because it's, as I said, over time duplicates and things could have been merged. Maybe sometimes something was not available before and got added and I got a new policy. So what is some feedback that you actually get from your customers now that you probably work with them through the development phase of that agent?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the classic feedback we get is the time saving element, right? So even in the process that we just went through, which in this case seems seemingly simple, which is okay, the agent has identified 4 new users, added them to a group, and all I need to do now is click a single button. But if you contrast that with how things are done today, what the admin to replicate what the agent has done would need to probably go into their logs, right? Go to audit logs, and then they will need to say, great, I'm now on the audit logs. Let me find out what were the new users who are added in the last 24 hours. And then
Wow.
they will need to go and say, great, now that I've identified the users, go to a group, create a group, come back, etc. So time saving is a big piece of it. Another nice thing about the agent is what we hear from a lot of customers. They love the fact that we were able to assess and explain what the potential user impact would be from this change. And one feature which we introduced earlier this year as well is the policy impact tab. And from here, you can see because we already have this policy, you're able to identify how the sign in has changed over time, and therefore showing that, great, what are additional gaps that I need to cover, right? So for instance, you see that on May 21st, there were 8.6 thousand sign-ins that were protected or not applied to this policy. So all of these are potential gaps in the environment where if this policy were enabled or if those users were protected by this policy, then you can protect up to 9,000 sign-ins. So those are some of the feedback that we've heard from customers. And again, clicking on a single button so that you can implement all these changes is dramatic, right? You don't have to go through and make all the jobs. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love single buttons or toggles. So this is awesome. So, Lisa, last call to action for everyone out there. So, I would assume, yes, go check it out, but maybe also a little bit of advice on how to approach this, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. So 100% we want to invite everyone who are listening in or tuning into the show to try out the CA agent. And again, it's very easy. You should be able to simply come to the homepage or the agent's menu and directly try out the agent. Another element which I'll highly recommend is take a look, give us feedback, right? As always, we have ways for you to give us feedback so that we can continue to improve the CA agent and make it create more value and help admins save time and be more productive so that they can focus on any strategic initiative that they wish they have time to get to. Yeah. In these busy time and days, we can always benefit from having more time back.
Absolutely. So, Lisa, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for showing us this new optimization agent. And everybody out there, thanks for watching. And I hope you're going to check it out now. And if there is feedback, don't forget to submit it. And then see you soon. Thank you all. Bye.